At 9:14 hours on March 23, 1944, a German Tiger tank commander named Hauptmann Werner Richter ordered his gunner to fire on an advancing British column near Cassino, Italy. His crew had done this 1,000 times. The 88 mm cannon was loaded. The target was acquired. The breech was sealed. The gunner squeezed the trigger. The gun exploded. Not the shell. The gun itself. The barrel ruptured 3 feet from the breech with a sound like a thunderclap wrapped in screaming metal. The explosion blew backward into the turret, killing the gunner instantly and wounding everyone else inside. The most powerful tank in the German arsenal had just murdered its own crew. The Tiger had not been hit by enemy fire. It had not driven over a mine. It had not suffered a manufacturing defect. It had been killed by a piece of wire that cost less than a pack of cigarettes. And somewhere in London, a group of quiet men in an unmarked office building smiled when they read the report. Because this was exactly what they had designed. To understand how a wire destroyed a Tiger, you need to understand what made the Tiger so terrifying in the first place. The Panzerkampfwagen WWII Tiger I was the most feared weapon on the European battlefield. Its 88 mm KWK-36 cannon could destroy any Allied tank from over 2,000 yards. Its armor was so thick that standard anti-tank weapons bounced off like pebbles. When a Tiger appeared on the battlefield, Allied tank crews would abandon their positions rather than face it. The psychological effect was devastating. British tankers called it Tiger Terror. Entire offensives stalled because commanders suspected Tigers in the area. One German tank could paralyze a division. The mathematics were simple. If you couldn't penetrate its armor, and you couldn't outrun its gun, you were dead the moment it saw you. The Allies tried everything. They developed new shells. They attacked from multiple angles. They called in airstrikes. Sometimes these tactics worked. Usually, they just got more men killed. The Tiger was not just a tank. It was a statement. It said that German engineering was superior, and no amount of Allied numbers could overcome quality. But there was one vulnerability that the Germans never considered. The Tiger needed maintenance. And maintenance required supplies, and supplies had to be transported across occupied Europe through networks of warehouses, depots, and repair facilities. Networks that were full of people who hated the Nazis and were willing to die to stop them. The Special Operations Executive was Churchill's secret army. Their motto was simple: set Europe ablaze. They trained saboteurs, coordinated resistance movements, and developed weapons that didn't look like weapons. Their scientists worked in basement laboratories creating explosives that looked like coal, incendiaries that looked like briefcases, and poisons that looked like medicine. In early 1943, So received a request from the War Office. The Tiger tank was causing unacceptable casualties. Air attacks were too expensive and too unreliable. Direct combat was suicidal. Was there another way? The scientists thought about the problem differently than the generals. The generals wanted to destroy the Tiger in battle. The scientists wanted to destroy the Tiger before the battle even started. They wanted to make the Tiger destroy itself. The solution they developed was elegant in its brutality. It was called the bore obstruction device, though the agents in the field simply called it the wire. The physics were straightforward. When a tank cannon fires, the explosive charge in the shell casing ignites and generates enormous pressure. This pressure accelerates the shell down the barrel at over 2,000 feet per second. The barrel is designed to contain this pressure until the shell exits the muzzle. If anything interrupts this process, if the shell slows down or stops inside the barrel, the pressure has nowhere to go. It builds catastrophically until the barrel fails. The result is not a gentle malfunction. It is a violent rupture that turns the breech end of the cannon into shrapnel. The gunner, positioned directly behind the breech, takes the full force of the explosion. In a sealed tank turret, with metal walls reflecting the blast, survival is essentially impossible. The wire was designed to create exactly this scenario. It was a simple steel cable, approximately 8 inches long, with barbs cut into the surface at irregular intervals. When inserted into the barrel of an 88 mm gun, it would slide down into the rifling grooves and lodge itself approximately 18 inches from the breech. The barbs would catch on the grooves, making it impossible to dislodge with standard cleaning equipment. The genius was in the placement. 18 inches from the breech meant the shell would travel only a short distance before striking the obstruction. The shell would still be accelerating, still building pressure. When it hit the wire, it would slow just enough to create a millisecond delay. In that millisecond, the pressure behind the shell would exceed the barrel's structural limits. The wire was nearly invisible during normal inspection. It sat deep inside the barrel, past the point where routine maintenance would reach. Tank crews cleaned the first few feet of the bore. They didn't thread inspection cables down the entire length unless they suspected a problem. And there was no reason to suspect a problem with a brand new maintenance supply. Distribution was the critical challenge. So couldn't simply mail packages of sabotage devices to occupied France. They needed to infiltrate the German supply chain at a point where the wire could be inserted without detection. The solution came from an unlikely source. A Belgian railway worker named Marcel Dupont had been feeding information to the resistance for 2 years. His job gave him access to cargo manifests for military supplies moving through Brussels. He noticed that tank maintenance kits, which included barrel cleaning supplies, were shipped in sealed crates from factories in Germany to depots across occupied Europe. The crates were not opened until they reached the final repair facilities. The resistance developed a system. Agents would intercept specific crates during the brief window when they were transferred between trains. Using forged German documentation, they would open the crates, insert the wire devices into the barrel cleaning kits, and reseal everything with authentic-looking tape and stamps. The entire operation took less than 15 minutes per crate. The tank crews who eventually received these supplies had no way of knowing they had been tampered with. The maintenance kits looked normal. The packaging was correct. The paperwork was in order. They would use the cleaning equipment, unknowingly pushing the wire deep into the barrel where it would wait for the next firing. The waiting was the most psychologically devastating aspect. A tank with a wire lodged in its barrel might operate for days or weeks before it fired its main gun. The crew would drive through towns, take up defensive positions, report ready for combat. They would feel invincible inside their Tiger. They would not know they were sitting in a bomb. The first confirmed kill came in February 1944. A Tiger stationed near Rome fired on American positions during a patrol. The barrel ruptured. The crew was killed. German investigators examined the wreckage and found fragments of the wire embedded in the breech mechanism. They wrote a report classifying the incident as industrial sabotage. That report triggered a crisis in the Wehrmacht Maintenance Command. They ordered inspections of all 88 mm barrels across the European theater. But the wire was designed to resist detection. Inspection teams found nothing because they didn't know what they were looking for. The wires that had already been inserted remained in place. New wires continued to enter the supply chain faster than the Germans could check. Over the following months, the incidents multiplied. 3 Tigers in France, 2 in Italy, 1 in the Netherlands. Each time the pattern was identical. The gun fired, the barrel exploded, the crew died, and German investigators found no enemy action, no manufacturing defect, nothing to explain how their perfect weapon had become a death trap. The psychological effect on German tank crews was profound. They had been trained to fear enemy fire. They had not been trained to fear their own guns. The uncertainty was corrosive. Before every shot, there was now a question. Had the barrel been compromised? Was this the round that would kill them? The confidence that had made Tiger crews so aggressive began to evaporate. Some crews started refusing to fire until their barrels had been personally inspected by officers. This slowed their response time in combat. Others became obsessed with maintenance, cleaning their barrels repeatedly before every engagement. This wore out the rifling grooves and reduced accuracy. The wire had achieved something that years of direct combat had failed to accomplish. It had made Tiger crews afraid of their own tanks. The Germans never fully solved the problem. They implemented new inspection protocols, but the resistance adapted. They moved the insertion points. They varied the design of the wire. They targeted different supply routes. For every countermeasure the Germans developed, The scientists developed a countermeasure. It was an invisible arms race fought in warehouses and railway yards while the visible war raged on the battlefields. By the end of the war, confirmed barrel failures attributed to obstruction devices numbered in the dozens. The actual number was likely much higher. Many incidents occurred in chaotic combat situations where the cause was never investigated. Many Tigers were destroyed by their own crews during retreats, making forensic analysis impossible. The wire never won a battle by itself. It was not a war-winning weapon in the conventional sense, but it achieved something that bombs and shells could not. It planted doubt in the minds of the enemy. It made them question the one thing they had always trusted, their own equipment. It turned the legendary Tiger from a symbol of German invincibility into a potential coffin. Churchill reportedly called the Boer obstruction program one of the finest examples of asymmetric warfare ever conceived. The cost of the entire operation, including development, manufacturing, and distribution, was less than the price of a single Spitfire. The damage it inflicted, in destroyed equipment, killed crews, and shattered confidence, was incalculable. The men and women who made it possible were never recognized. Marcel Dupont was arrested by the Gestapo in August 1944 and executed 3 weeks before Brussels was liberated. The scientists returned to civilian life and signed secrecy agreements that prevented them from discussing their work for decades. The files were classified, the reports were buried, and the wire faded into the shadows of history. But the physics remained true. A barrel can only contain so much pressure. A shell can only accelerate so far before obstruction becomes catastrophe. The Germans built the most feared gun of the war, and the British destroyed it with 9th-grade physics and a piece of wire that cost 3 pence. Sometimes the most devastating weapon is not the one with the biggest explosion. It is the one that makes your enemy afraid to pull the trigger. If this story changed how you think about warfare, hit the subscribe button right now. One click tells the algorithm that invisible victories matter as much as battlefield glory. Drop a comment below and tell me what simple solution you would design to stop a superior enemy. Something cheap, something overlooked, something nobody would expect. Hit the notification bell because we're uncovering another shadow operation that changed the war without firing a single shot. I'll see you in the next one.